Welcome to the Wake Up Call for the Soul podcast with Bill and Claire, where we go deep and wide on subjects intended to support our awakening to greater truth, beauty, goodness, freedom, joy, peace, harmony, and love. Hey, Claire.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. As we talked about before, I'm recovering a little bit from an upper respiratory thing last week. So if I sound a little weird to anyone who's listening to these recordings in some kind of sequence or series, that's probably what's going on with my voice right now. So how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited to talk about this topic.
Yeah, me too. So today's topic, I really had a hard time coming up with a title for this. So what I put in our notes is stellar friends and all things otherworldly or apparently otherworldly, unidentified anomalous phenomena, ETs, universal intelligences, etc. So because there's a lot of overlap and diversity in terms of things that people tend to associate with, we'll call them extraterrestrial civilizations that may not actually have anything to do with extraterrestrial civilizations and all these kinds of things. So I tried to kind of leave it open there, just to try to be like, because I don't know where this conversation is going to go. I'm going to follow your lead, Claire, in terms of your questions, and we're just going to talk and see what comes out here. Does that work for you, Claire?
Oh, that sounds great.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'm also probably going to be drinking a bit more water here than I typically do. All right. So I want to kick it over to you, Claire. Like and I guess I'll say something. I mean, in terms of the history of our relationship, it was this topic of beings from other worlds visiting this planet that kind of, got us started in a conversation on a different platform and things, which then eventually led us to having the conversations here. And so, and I love talking about this stuff. Anyways, I just thought I'd throw that in. Yeah. So what question do you want to kind of open up with here?
Well, I would love if you could touch on your opinion on what stellar friends are and if they are like ET or if they're spiritual and kind of where they fit in with source, like anything in that
Hmm.
realm if you want to touch on
Hmm.
that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, that's a comfortable place for me to start. So yeah. So when I use the word stellar friends, which I got from a friend and colleague of mine, several of this was back in 21. I started applying what I'll call transformational vocabulary to what a lot of people will refer to as ETs or extraterrestrials. I started using the word stellar friends in recognition that now I was actually having interactions with these folks from other planets, and kind of to create some transformational perspectives on that, instead of reinforcing some of the more human ideas about who they are, why they're doing what they're doing, all that kind of stuff. And I'm probably going to wander around here. So at certain points, Claire, I'm going to be like, okay, I think I answered maybe or responded part of what you asked about. I tried to take notes here, but I don't know how good they are. Anyways, so when I use the phrase stellar friends, what I am referring to are beings. Uh, and their civilizations who live on other planets throughout the vastness that we could call the cosmos, the universe, the omniverse, whatever. So these are beings who live in physical, biological bodies similar to ours. They all apparently follow a pretty similar template, although the physics and chemistry of their various worlds lead to some differences in various things related to metabolism, communication, physical appearance, these kinds of things. So when I'm talking about stellar friends, I'm talking about those beings who come from other planets who either are visiting this planet, have visited this planet, will be visiting this planet, who are interested in helping our species through this current time of change and transformation that we are undergoing as a species on Earth at this time. And so for me, these are they are siblings to us, and the way that they are siblings to us. So and you could, I mean, the ones that I'm familiar with, they will actually in their communications refer to themselves as human beings in the sense that um, they are much more like us than unlike us, meaning that just as each human being on this planet has different aspects of their being, the most core and central aspect being that part which is made in the image and likeness of the source of all life and love. I'll often refer to that as the soul as a shorthand. They have souls as well. And so these beings, these people I like to call stellar friends, who are coming here in various different ways, different times, working with different individuals and groups, and again helping us through this time of transition. Um, they One of the big differences for them is that their planets, their civilizations are rooted in the foundational reality of their ever progressing union with source, what I call source, what others may refer to as God or other kinds of wording or language. My favorites tend to be source or creator. And so I guess the way I'll describe the difference between life on our planet and life on their planets is I'll talk about in terms of the incarnation of a soul. So when a soul incarnates on this planet, it immediately is sort of shocked by the chaotic and harsh energetic assault that it experiences, literally entering into its mother's womb. I can't remember if we've talked about this before or not, but
Mm.
anyway, so every soul on this planet enters into this world traumatized, basically. I mean, we won't go into exceptions. For the most part, if you're living on this planet, there's a really good chance that your soul was traumatized from the moment your tiny little baby soul entered into your mama's womb. Okay. So that's reality on this planet. And then it just kind of, I mean, to be honest, it sort of just gets worse from there for most of us on this planet in terms of the harshness and the challenges we face living on this world as humanity has sort of formatted it at this point. Okay. So that's our reality. Stellar friends in their reality on their planet, and I'm not going to get into how they ended up in this situation. That's probably a whole other episode, or we can go down that rabbit hole if you want to later, Claire. But it's this idea that so you have beings who are there when their souls incarnate on their world, their entire civilization, everything about it is based on the unconditional love of Source and that unconditional love of source being embodied and expressed in its fullness through all of the members of the civilization on that planet. And so when those tiny little babies, souls, enter into the wombs of mamas on these planets, they are just like I mean, every soul is a sponge. The soul just wants to absorb everything. It's just like, oh, there's so much. This is so awesome. I'm just going to take it all in. And on our planet, that gets shut down pretty quickly. Um, and we definitely see the results of it, as children go through what we consider to be typical developmental stages on this planet. But on their planets, these kids, they're in the womb, they're absorbing all this love, all this light, all this joy and happiness and peace and beauty and goodness. It's just like they're just soaking it in. And so when these babies are born, I mean, they look more like baby Jesus, every single one of them on their planet. Like we've had one baby Jesus. Like they have, every kid that's born is like a baby Jesus, like where this child is very connected to source and to the source's unconditional love and feels only unconditional love and support for the uniqueness of this precious little soul as then that child grows and develops as part of these civilizations that look I guess you could call them the exact opposite of what life looks like on this planet at this time. So wow, that's a great question. Hopefully I responded to part of it. I'll just be quiet now, Claire, and let you say or ask. It's like, Bill, you didn't talk about this or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. It's very thorough. I guess my next like follow-up question is this is a very controversial topic in the spiritual community. I've seen a lot of very passionate opinions in either direction, and I know it can kind
Hmm.
of throw people off when
Hmm.
you start talking about things like this. That's
Hmm.
where I feel like I tend to lose people. Um, and I'm not even someone that knows much about it at all. Um, so did you ever feel um, awkward about starting to learn about this, or did you have any hesitations or any concerns about either how you might be treated by other people, or like did this scare you at all, or were you kind of interested and excited about it from the get-go?
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a wonderful question. For myself, I like when I saw the first Star Wars movie, what eventually became, Episode 4, A New Hope, when I was 5 years old. Okay, give you an idea of how old I am. I saw it in the theater. Like that was the first movie I'd seen in the theater, and seeing that movie and seeing all the different beings and the technology and all this stuff, I was just like, this is awesome, and even like with my dad was a big Star Trek fan. There was always this really interesting dynamic where he would flip through channels and come across an episode of Star Trek and he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen this one." I believe that there were two seasons of the original Star Trek, with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and friends. And then like by the end it'd be like, "Oh, I've seen this one." Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
these are the memories I have. Anyways, but that's a different kind of vision, of kind of this federation of planets that are united. There are enemies, in that one, the Klingons are really sort of enemies. I think the Romulans are also not a group that they get along really well at that point either. Yeah, anyways, but yeah, I've sort of always been fascinated by this idea, this possibility of other people living on other planets. Um, and things. And then, I came across the ancient alien stuff, I don't know how long ago that was. And I thought, oh, that's really, interesting and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, by the time I was literally introduced where it's like, yeah, okay, I was with a group of people looking to work on a particular form of spiritual development and we were introduced to kind of an ambassador from one of these stellar friend civilizations. And like when that happened, I was excited. I was like, oh my gosh, my dreams are absolutely coming true. Like, finally, the thing that I've wanted like my entire life is here, and I get to be a part of it. And I'm so excited. And it's so much more awesome and wonderful than I ever thought it would be. So, that's my attempt at a description of my journey. So, for me, it's always been awesome. It's pretty much, I mean, there's been questions. I read, like Lee Strieber's book, Communion, and I've read some different things over the years that brought up some of the darker aspects and things of, I'll call them supposed ET kinds of activities and such. But for the most part, I've been very interested and excited to know, and I appreciate that there are people who feel very strongly that they have experienced trauma and injury at the hands of I'll call them extraterrestrial biological entities or, similar such things. And based on my current knowledge and understanding, I appreciate that people believe that that's what they've experienced, but there's a big difference between believing that someone has experienced something like putting mental overlays and forms and constructs over top of experiences that are real. I'm not denying the reality of the experiences, but I am in a I'll call it a more doubtful or skeptical space if people are going to tell me that, and these people are definitely from other planets. Because the evidence that I have, the sense that I have deep within my soul is that part of it is not true. But it in no way, I have no interest in telling anyone that, you're imagining what you're experiencing. I don't, that's not my job. And I don't think that's actually what's happening. I think that there are very powerful forces in this world, on this planet, that desire to stoke fear and paranoia in order to control people. And that's a whole different agenda. And I believe that that's been going on for a long time and it hasn't stopped, anyway. So
Mhm.
wasn't planning on going there. But anyways, so I don't know, does that give you a clue of where I'm coming from?
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think of what my next question should be. I have a few. Let me think.
Yeah,
Well,
no, take
okay.
your time.
So with these stellar friends, why do you think that people are able to contact them or have been contacted by them? What do you think the purpose would be for them hanging out around us if we
Hmm.
are, um, I don't know if low vibrational would be the word, but
Hmm. No.
like our planet is struggling, right?
Hmm.
We're
Hmm.
struggling.
Right.
And so what would their purpose be to be
Yeah.
around us?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's part of what is so exciting to me about my experiences with Stellar Friends is that I have a very deep sense of peace and calm about their presence and their involvement in what's happening on this planet, their interactions with, not just me and my friends, but I mean, they are interacting with people all over the world at this point, with varying degrees of consciousness on the part of those people with whom they are interacting. Um, and so, I mean, really, they've always been here, as far as I know. And they never left. As long as human beings have been on this planet, and shoot, possibly even longer than that. Uh, but their purpose to be here in such great numbers, in such great diversity from so many worlds and civilizations from across the universe. Like, I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands of civilizations, let alone individuals or we'll just call them individuals. Individuals from those civilizations, probably in the tens to hundreds of thousands, literally working with people on the planet now, working to help our planet Earth, working in harmony with Source and everything. So, I mean, the reason why they are here in these incredible numbers and why their presence is becoming more and more apparent to more and more people is that we are in a time of incredible challenge. Our species has brought our planet nearly to the brink of complete destruction. I mean, actually, it's not an easy thing to kill a planet, and our species is on track to do that if intervention does not happen. And so so a big part of why they're here is to help prevent the annihilation of our world, the Earth, the living being upon which we all live and move and depend, and also to assist humanity in this kind of dual purpose of and helping us to wake up to who we really are as children of the source, to help us to wake up to the fact that we are meant to be part of this vast and diverse family of beings, all made in the image and likeness of the source's oversoul. Um, and so, I mean, they're basically here to help support the healing, the change, the developments that are needed within individual people, within our species as we consider it on this planet, in order to support the continued existence of this world and the possibilities of our species coming out of the spiritual dead end that we have established for ourselves and moving into a new and completely different trajectory where we are on a positive track toward ever greater levels of joy, peace, love, harmony, beauty, expression, go down the list. So that's my sense of why they're here. And they're looking for everyone who is willing to work with them. Um, so anyone who is open to what they're doing, and this goes the same for the angels too. The angels for me are people who used to live on Earth who've undergone the transformation of their being into divinity. Our stellar friends are very much like our angel friends, except they just happen to live on other planets, in the universe. And because of that, because of their corporeality, their physicalness, they have certain abilities and blessings that they are able to bring to our species that are just much harder to bring through from the highest heavenly realms that surround this particular planet. So yeah, and so the source has a plan. I mean, there is this vast and intricately woven plan for the salvation of our species and for the righting of all of the wrongs that have been done to the earth over the millennia. And that plan has been in progress, I think, probably since the beginning, but we are entering a particularly intense phase of that where changes in terms of weather, in terms of geological phenomena, in terms of the energetics and magnetics of the planet, outputs from the sun, other spiritual energetics that are impacting the planet and all life upon it. Like we are now entering into much more advanced stages that are going to increase the intensities of what's happening, and all in an effort to kind of help wake people up and help the earth do what she needs to do to set things right.
Mhm.
Ooh, okay. I'll be quiet now.
No, that was a great response. Um, I was wondering, how have you felt like have you felt like you've communicated with these beings, these stellar friends? Have you felt like you've worked with them? How are you,
Mhm.
how are you aware of all of this?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So in my original awareness would have been in the fall of 2021 when I was with this development group. And the primary way that this information was coming through was through my more, I will call them mediumistic or psychic friends. So um, we would receive what you would call channeled messages. So where the ambassador from this civilization would communicate through one of the people who had the ability to receive and express verbal messages from that being. And so, so that was kind of the beginning for it. But I was also in this thing. I was living in a house that we had rented for a few weeks for this development gathering, where one of the ladies in that house was also very psychic and mediumistic and things. And so she started telling stories about her interactions with them and things now that they had kind of come out and said, "Hey, we're working with you guys." And we were told by our, because up until that point, we had really been working with who we call celestial angels, these beings who used to live on Earth, who've undergone a profound transformation in their being and who are now, I'll call it, at one with Source. And so it was these beings who introduced us to the Stellar Friends, basically saying, "Hey, we needed help because we only had 3 weeks to do this stuff with you guys, and so we went to the people of this planet who seem to have the right technology and understanding to help accelerate and expedite this process because we don't have as much time with you guys as other groups may have had in the past." And so then the Stellar Friends they brought their technologies to this planet, but in a realm that you can't see, like it's one that's just sort of how do you describe this stuff. I'll just say it was a tangential sort of dimension to this one that they were able to bring through all of these technologies that we got to experience and things. So in terms of my experiences with them, a lot of what I know is based on these verbal communications that have been brought through by friends of mine, through the conversations that we have, through those kinds of things. And I mean, and I have personally experienced like I'll just use the word, the power of their technology is on my being. I mean, like the stuff, I don't understand the technologies that they were using. They were very different than what we have on this planet. They're more alive. Like we tend to build things out of metal and plastic and wires that appear to be very dead. Their technologies are much more like living things. They have their own consciousness and awareness. Um, that is just kind of hard to understand, and they operate in modes and in dimensions and possibilities that are completely, kind of outside of our ability to really fathom or comprehend intellectually. But it was my experiences with those technologies where we would have sessions and then we would talk about what we experienced, and it's like, oh, okay, and just, I mean, really things that I'd just never experienced before. And I've had experiences since then where for example, I will have a sense that a stellar friend is near or stellar friends are near, and that they're actually applying their like smaller tech, like the stuff we were dealing with back in 21. These were massive, again, I don't even know what to call these things. Machines, I guess, like they were very large. In
Mm.
this case, the stuff I experience now is much smaller, like smaller devices, smaller pieces of technology that I can sense. I'll feel them. I'll get a, kind of an image of what they are, and even some sense of maybe what they're doing or what they're working on with me, kind of a thing. Um, and so for me, I have a sense, I have a knowing that they are around me. Um, but I don't receive at this stage, at least as far as I'm aware, like actual spoken communications directly from them to me that I, consciously hear in my brain and all of that. A lot of my sense of things is I'll hear things and it will resonate with me. I'll be like, yeah, okay, that feels true, that kind of a thing, either from other mediums or conversations that I have from people who are a bit more, I'll say, psychically or mediumistically gifted in terms of things, either what they can see or what they can hear, kind of a thing. So that's kind of my level of awareness and interaction with them, at least the way that I can describe it. So I don't, at this stage, I don't see them. I have lots of friends who do. I don't hear them. I have a decent number of friends who do, and then I have some friends through whom they speak and say things, in the form of guidance or encouragement or whatever. So that's kind of, yeah, it's kind of all a part of my world and my community and all that kind of stuff.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Um, wow. I just have to take that in for a second.
Yeah, take your time.
Um, I guess this kind of goes with the topic. There are people out there that want to communicate somehow with these stellar friends.
Hmm.
And I know that there's certain methods people use. I think people have
Yeah,
mentioned like CE5 and human initiated contact, stuff like that.
yeah,
What's your opinion on people trying to reach out?
yeah. No, to me, that those activities are completely natural. I mean, like it didn't occur to me when I was younger to do it. I kind of wish I had, because if I had, I'm pretty sure that they would have, made earlier conscious contact with me had I done so. Um, so yeah, I think it's awesome that people are doing that. And the protocols, at least the one I'm most familiar with is the CE5. I think it makes sense for people to do that, because with how the world is at this point, with it so just saturated with fear and judgment and separation and all of these chaotic feelings and stuff like that. I mean, if people are willing to, put themselves into states and conditions that allow them to communicate with other, well, with other, no, with advanced civilizations on other planets, then I'm all for it. And I think that that's part of the plan, that there's a lot of people on this planet who are having very profound experiences with stellar friends. uh, I think probably less than 1% of these experiences are showing up online. I'm guessing about 99% of it is just people living their lives, doing what makes sense to them, and allowing these encounters, these experiences, these relationships to develop, so that, when the time comes for a more global disclosure, that the ground is thoroughly seeded, with millions of people who no longer have doubts about the existence of these beings and their plans and purposes with regard to us and our planet. So yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, and I think if there are people who are, I mean, if there are people who are desperately trying to do this sort of thing, and who are like looking to get some kind of wham bam revelation from, seeking contact with stellar friends and stuff. I mean, they're not going to play those games. They're not going to do that because that's not helping anyone. But if there are people who are really like curious and who want to have these kinds of contacts and to allow these experiences and relationships to help them in their own personal spiritual growth and development and awareness, I think that's completely, appropriate, because that's what these beings are here for. I mean, they are here to help us individually and collectively to wake up, to change, to become uh, much closer to who we have always been intended to be as beings, as opposed to the kind of self-deceived creatures that we have allowed ourselves to become on this planet.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. We need it badly, and we need as many people on this planet to be open and receptive to their, existence and their loving and gentle intentions for our species and for our planet as possible. Because the more of those people there are, then the fewer there are of the people who are going to be, terrified and frightened and in denial and seeking to engage in, violence and other kinds of things. So that's where I'm at. Awesome
Yeah.
question.
Oh, excuse me. Um, yeah, that's really great.
We look forward to you joining us for the rest of our conversation in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wake Up Call for the Soul with Bill and Claire. May we love ourselves and all more and more with each passing moment. We wish you the very best and highest. Until next time.